What if your woo is exactly the energy that's needed at your work? What if that's true? Well, today's guest, LauraAura, she is an alignment coach for driven women, and she's here to help us all be gutsy, really gutsy, get out of our comfort zone and bring to the world all of us, all of our gifts, all of our expression, all of our light. Join us to find out more.
Soul Nectar Show, the Soul Nectar Show. You're invited, delighted to discover who you are. Anything is possible if you believe. So join us on this beautiful journey. Soul Nectar Show, Soul Nectar Show.
Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Soul Nectar Show, that show where we talk about all things essence, where we gather around the fire and we share our stories of connection to that which is greater than us, to the big mystery beyond the veil, to those synchronistic moments that lead us inexorably to a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world that we live in. I'm your host, Carrie Hummingbird, and I love having these conversations week after week and opening up to different reflections of how the divine shows up for us in our daily lives, in the mundane world. And today is really, I just got this inner giggle. This title just came out to me, is bringing the woo to work. You know, it's like, are you still hiding the fact that you have intuition? Are you still being in the closet with that? Like, are you acting as if you found the evidence for what you're sharing in a 500-page report that you read and now is certified by all these people that know what they're talking about? Or are you like actually leaning in and checking in inside and bringing that woo to work? Like, no, this is just my intuitive hit that I've got, and it's my gut instinct, and this is what I just know to be true in this moment. So let's follow that and see what happens. I encourage you to bring the woo to work. And maybe it's because I'm a rebel rouser. Maybe it's because I'm just so delighted at the house of cards falling down everywhere and just so excited that the truth is being revealed, and spirit is the truth. Spirit, that's who we are. We're all spirit. And we're connected with this vast interconnected web of consciousness that's like teeming with life and wisdom and ancestral knowing. And we can tap into that at any time, right from our very bodies. Isn't that miraculous? It's amazing. And I'm so happy that the world is starting to catch on to that. And we don't have to be so, I don't know, exclusive with our ideas about how things work, given that everything is a dang quantum experiment anyway. So whatever your reticular activating thing in your brain thinks is true, like that's what ends up being true. So let's just stop fooling ourselves just for a hot moment and start trusting that inner guidance, that inner knowing inside of you. So I really love this topic. I hope you guys are chuckling with me, bringing the woo to work, because we're going to be talking with LauraAura, who's here to join us today. Welcome, Laura.
Hey, Carrie. Thanks for having me.
I met Laura. She's fantastic, isn't she? You guys will find out. You don't know yet, but you will find out. She's amazing. I already know. LauraAura is an alignment coach for driven women, guiding them to learn how to honor their energy and truly listen to what they want instead of what they've been taught that they should want. And Laura's a vibrant speaker. She's a coach, author. She's the host of the Gutsy Podcast. And I've just been on there, the Gutsy Podcast. It's a top 100 podcast. Congratulations on that, by the way. That's awesome work. And she says she'll be the first person to push you out of your comfort zone and the last to hug you as you head to the next level of your life. So let's talk about this. Like, first of all, let's let people know a little bit about you. I mean, I just introduced you from your bio, but what's something about yourself that led you into doing this work and why it made you so passionate about it? And then I really like this topic that we've chosen for today. So I can't wait to get into it.
Yeah, it's a personal one. So that it's going to be a fun one. You know, I've been an entrepreneur for 17 years now. So I've run a business, you know, for a really long time. I started my career in branding and design, graphic design, and I ran a graphic design agency for 16 years. And through building that business, I realized that there was so much more about the person that I was working with that I wanted to get to know outside of just the brand, right? That was such a huge part of it. But I was really intrigued by what made people excited and what kept you up at night and what were the things that you were thinking that was stopping you and why do you go after these things? And I just became really fascinated with the mind. And so I started to interview entrepreneurs because I felt like if I was having these thoughts and feelings, certainly at least one other person had to, right? Well, it turns out a boatload more do, not just one. And, that interest really just started to evolve over time. And those interviews turned into the Gutsy Podcast. The Gutsy Podcast turned into my desire to coach and to help and to teach people. And it ultimately led me to sell my branding agency and pursue this work full time. So here we are, and I'm doing this work, and my intuition comes along with me.
And that's really gutsy. It is gutsy. Like I was telling you before the show, Laura, it's like I put out on social media on LinkedIn. Now, granted, I did it on Facebook first, but on LinkedIn, I changed my name to Carrie Hummingbird. And all of my Silicon Valley contacts were like, she's gone insane. What's the matter with her? She's taking these drugs too far, whatever they were saying about me. And it's like, no, I just found my path. Like I found my true name. I found my calling, and like, it's undeniable. And I'm just going to be out of the closet with it, And so I just started that. It's gutsy to do that though. I meet a lot of people who are afraid to tell somebody that they're like basic minimum, like spirituality, like just the tiniest little bit of a toe in the water of spirituality. And they're actually afraid to say that to other people.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, still even today, now less, but still today, it's still kind of taboo in a lot of places, right? Especially if you're in a corporate setting or a quote unquote professional place, right? It's like, oh, I don't want to be seen as weird, or, what's going on with her? And, that's not valid. And I need actual proof, and give me the papers. And, it's such an underrated gift. Yet it's one of the most powerful gifts I think that anyone can have. I think everybody has their own level of intuition, right? We all possess it. It's just how much do we use it? And it's like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets, the more clear it gets, the more it becomes just part of your existence. And, it's interesting, when I was building the branding agency, I didn't necessarily hide this part of me, but I never really vocally used it. Right? I would use it in silence to make decisions or to feel things out, but it was never really a part of my process. And it wasn't until I shifted over to this business and speaking and coaching that I was like, listen, this is how I work my magic. This is how I'm able to do what I do. I don't know where half this shit comes from. I don't sit and come up with this stuff. It literally comes down through and out of me. And I never hid it per se, but I know a lot of people do. But just for my own personal journey, I never really hid it. I just never felt the need to vocalize it. And what I'm finding, and this is still a process right now, is that the more I vocalize that this is part of who I am, the more people are like, oh, hey, I have a question. Oh, hey, can we talk? Oh my gosh, me too. I haven't met anybody else that does that, right? And the more you just claim that space, the more you give other people permission. Not that they need the permission, but sometimes they need to see it or feel it to be able to have that gutsy of their own to step up and say, oh yeah, like this is part of my world too. How can you help me with this?
Yeah, it's like, this is who I am, and it's undeniable. And, I was in a long-term relationship with somebody who didn't believe in magic, didn't believe in spirit, didn't believe in intuition. It was kind of more of those logic-centered people. Nothing wrong with those people, right? Like, it's fine. But it was a testing ground for me to know what I know in the midst of a culture that supports that person's perspective, right? Like, we're kind of in the middle of a culture. And like I said, it's a house of cards and it's falling down. And that makes me like super gleeful because there's room now. Like, there's increasingly room for people like you and me and everybody else who's listening to this, that you have powerful woo gifts, and the most powerful thing, let's say, and this is one thing I shared with some of my executive clients, is that when you actually go into a meeting and you're so tapped into your own body and presence that you can feel exactly what's not being said in the room, you can actually speak to it. And yes, everyone's head will freaking turn on like the exorcism, like how does she know that? And it's because you're so tapped in that you can feel exactly what's going on in the space. It's not what people say, it's what is actually going on underneath. And then you can guide the conversation from that place. And I remember my mentor, Alberto Vialdo from the Four Winds Light Body, he would be called in to like these big mergers, right? Like companies are having huge mergers and all these big mucky mucks are gathering into the boardroom. And he's coming into the boardroom too, not with his shaman's cape, but just with a suit, a very nondescript suit, and like his mesa, his medicine bundle inside his briefcase. Nobody knows what's inside his briefcase. I just think it's, a briefcase. And he's sitting there opening sacred space. He's sitting there holding presence for this meeting to go well. And the people that bring him in because they know that when he's sitting in the room, everything goes better. They don't know why, but everything goes better when he's sitting in the room. And that's because spirit is in the room, right? So like, I know you know this. It's like, how can we encourage everyone to use your spidey senses, right? Like use your spidey senses to feel like who's safe to share it with, who's safe to open up to.
Absolutely. It's a tool on so many levels, right? Like making decisions. Yes, I'm going to work with this person. No, I'm not going to work with this person. There's something just not quite right here. I need to speak up. An idea comes in. I want to share that, right? Like there's limitless opportunities when you utilize this. And I think that sometimes it can be helpful to just start small, that you don't have to broadcast it, right? Because I think sometimes the biggest fear is like really truly being seen and heard for who you really are. And if you're still figuring that out, that can feel incredibly vulnerable. And so unless you feel called to, you don't have to like get up on the boardroom table or get up in front of all your clients and be like, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is part of the work that we're doing together, right? I mean, if you want to, have at it. I think that could be super cool. But a lot of times it's building comfort within yourself and starting to utilize it without necessarily broadcasting it, listening to yourself and saying, I have something I want to add here, and then actually saying it. Or this is not the right client for me. I'm going to say no. Or there's something in this room, like you mentioned, that needs to be brought to the table, that needs to be said, an idea that I want to share. Like just start to utilize it and see how that unfolds in front of you. Because like you said, everybody's turning their head. Even if people don't understand it, they can feel it, right?
They can feel it. And like, for example, like in my healer training, we have someone who works in big government, right? And so she goes in every day and opens sacred space over the whole place. And everything just goes better. People don't have to know like what's going on. It's just you're inviting something in, right? You're inviting spirit to come in. You're inviting God, source, creator, whatever word you have for it. But there's just like, in my book, it's all the same thing. There's just one thing going on here. And so we're just inviting that one thing going on here to support everything to go easier, support people to come from their higher self, support people to come from a higher mind, a higher consciousness than the day-to-day sort of arguing, struggling, wrestling mindset, into like a higher knowing that actually flows better, right? Like describe some of your clients, like what are some of the experiences they have before, the frustrations and the that they have before they bring some of their woo to work, and like some of the magic that's happened after. Just if you can give us a couple of, just your thoughts on that.
One of the biggest things that I see with the people that I work with is they don't trust themselves. They don't trust what they're hearing. They don't trust what they're feeling. That can't possibly be something. I need to make it more concrete first. Who am I to even say something like this, right? It's just a lot of kind of passing it off. So what we're really working on is learning how to trust. And how do we trust? We learn how to do. We learn to lean into it, to step into it, to start utilizing it. And when they start utilizing their own intuition, they start trusting what they're hearing, sensing, feeling, right? Things change. I mean, all of you listening know when you use your intuition, when you use your abilities, things change. And so things like knowing when it's the right time to leave a partner, right? And start to change your life. A client of mine went from like really holding back and not being really sure and just like kind of tiptoeing to turning over and having the best financial months of her entire career, to find the right clients and the right opportunities. One gal was kind of holding back and I'm not really sure. And then she started putting herself out there when she felt called to. And now the opportunities that she was once forcing to happen are just showing up. These are just a couple of different ways. For me, a lot of mine is down to like sensing when something is right or wrong. And another big one is sensing when it's time to act. So I get a lot of hits when it's like, go check LinkedIn right now. And I'm like, really? Right now? Like I'm kind of in the middle of something. And my whole spirit team is fairly pushy when it's time to do something. I don't know about yours, but when it's time to do something, they're like, Laura, now. And I can't tell you how many times doors have opened, opportunities have happened, amazing connections. My next client has happened because I got on and sent the email when I felt the call to, when I got on and checked my messages, when I felt drawn to, right? When I spoke up and said something when normally I would have been like, nah, I don't, that's ridiculous. I'm not going to do that. Anytime that I've leaned in and trusted, and anytime my clients lean in and trust, the opportunities, they just fall towards you, right? It just opens up. You're not resisting them anymore. And I think that's the biggest challenge is when you're not trusting yourself, you're resisting yourself. And magic is, it's really hard to have magic happen when you're pushing and resisting and forcing.
Yeah. And it's actually like a switch, right? Like we're switching from thinking that facts are real into knowing that experience is real. So like it's an outward expression into an inward knowing. That's just a huge shift in consciousness that's happening on the planet. And absolutely. It's happening mostly, I wouldn't say, because I don't want to exclude our men in the audience from having this experience, but I would say it's anybody who's really tapped into yin energy, to feminine energy is having this awakening, has been having this awakening. And this like knowing on the inside that like everything on the outside is completely related to what's going on the inside. And then like our inner guidance is showing us way more than any outer guidance could possibly do, except maybe to point us to like, go look at this website to go find the information. And because we're tapped into this massive consciousness. And I think when it's a woman's body and we're having this awakening and we're disrupting the structures of external fact, research-based reams and reams of paper stuff to like, we just know what we know, that feels insecure at first because how do you know what you know? So it really is that question of, well, how do I know that this is true? How do I know that that's true inside of myself? I've been taught not to trust anything inside of myself by my religion, by my family system, or my society for generations. So now we're leaning in to trust that more. And those of us who are, like you said, experiencing miracles. It's like amazing what happens when the frequency shifts because you're trusting yourself and you're following the guidance and you're leaning into that, like that soft dreamlike state and you're going where it wants you to go. It's amazing what opens up. I mean, my life is a testament. Anybody's been following me for the last 12 years. You guys know, like, oh my gosh, Carrie Hummingbird, how did you do all that? Because I listen to spirit. I literally wake up every morning, open sacred space, ask what's next. And I follow. So I follow that inspiration like you were talking about.
Yeah. I always tell my clients that your intuition doesn't have to make sense to anybody else. Because I think
I love that.
We want to justify what we're thinking and feeling and sensing. And we want it to make sense to other people. And it just won't. It won't because it's not their message. It's not their drop-in. It's not their clarity. It's not their path. So a lot of the resistance is downplaying what you're sensing based off of what someone else wants to hear.
Yeah. And that has to do with the debunking of there's one reality going on the planet, because that's been the modality. Like we all thought we were sharing this common reality. And if you didn't jive with it, then there was something outcasty or bad about you or black sheepish. And like, we're realizing now, oh no, we have like 8 billion realities happening on the planet. And some of them overlap like a Venn diagram and some of them don't. And so, like who you resonate with as like-minded people, that's like whoever's reality sort of overlaps your Venn diagram pretty well. They're like-minded, but it doesn't make everybody else wrong. It's just that you're overlapping with them. You're understanding them a little bit better. But yeah, it's a personal journey, right? Like it's getting more and more clear that this journey is for us to take. It's our thumbprint journey. It's our own unique path.
For sure. I think another thing to talk about too is you mentioned like, how do I know if this is real or not? And I think that the only true way to find out is to lean into it, right? Is to take action with it. But I think something that comes up sometimes is, well, I followed my intuition and everything went to hell in a handbag. Right? I followed my intuition and things fell apart. I followed my intuition and this person got mad at me. And it's like, well, I can understand why you would be like, no, intuition equals bad. However, you followed your intuition because you were supposed to go through a path or a journey with that. In that tough situation, in that argument, in that things falling apart, that all needed to happen for you to continue on to the path. And I know it doesn't feel good in the moment. It doesn't mean that you did the wrong thing. It just means that there was information that you needed to gather, right? I like to look at it like gathering tools for your tool belt. Even though this path did not feel great, I learned something. I'm better equipped for the next time. I have deeper knowledge. I have a perspective now. I have a story that I can share, right? There's always something within those challenging moments that it wasn't your intuition like screwing you over. It was your intuition being like, okay, there's some stuff we got to do here because you are here in the physical form. You are in this physical body. There's some stuff we got to do. And to get to this point, this is what we need to walk through together.
Yeah. And that intuition might be saying you're in the wrong place. And here's some proof. Yep. Like, for example, don't do what that person wants for like a week and see what happens. And then everything explodes and you see what was underneath the surface and you realize, oh, our relationship was completely conditional. Wow. Right. And you needed to know that because you were thinking about making that person a business partner. And now you see why you don't want to do that, or if you're going to do it, you better have really clear guidelines. Right. So it's like, it's that really trusting that life is happening as us, by us, for us, and through us.
Absolutely. I don't know about you, but I think that it's interesting how intuition speaks to you too, because I think sometimes we want it to be this loud, clear, flashing billboard sign, and hate to break it to everybody, it's not going to happen that way. I mean, every once in a while, you might see a literal physical sign, right? That's very...
If you're really off track, you'll get a large neon sign.
A real big neon sign or a bumper sticker or something like that. But often I find, for myself anyway, it starts with this very kind of soft whisper, right? It's like a flyby thought. And it doesn't always have like a physical reaction. There's no grand piano coming with it. It's just like this like kind of whisper through. And I've gotten pretty good because I've worked with it enough that I'm like, okay, there was something just flew by here. Let me lean into that a little bit more. I don't always catch them though. Okay, let's just be very honest. Because what happens when you don't listen to that initial whisper, it turns into a little bit more of a talk. If something is really meant for you, that shit is going to get your attention whether you want it to or not. Okay.
And it's funny because actually, if you have a lot of resistance to it, it's probably really important for you to go do it, which is the opposite of what people think. Like a lot of times people think if it's easy, then it's meant for me. But if there's any resistance or adversity, then it's not. And I think what you're saying is wrong. Like Jeopardy, it's incorrect, right? Like, no, like you actually, the adversity is there for you too. It's right? Like, there's lessons here.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. The intuition doesn't have to be loud for it to be valid. Just enough of that whisper or nudge is enough. It doesn't have to be banging on the drums for you to act on it. So it can be soft. It can be loud. It's yours, right? It gets to be whatever it wants. But here's the thing. If you do not listen to it, it will get your attention one way or the other, right? It gets louder. It starts to nudge you. It starts to push you. It starts to make everything really kind of weird and complicated. And if you don't listen to it, it will punch you in the face. And these are those moments where you're like, I saw this coming. I felt it all along. I should have known. It's usually when you get to those moments where you're like, I saw it. I felt it. I knew it. I had a sense, but I didn't listen.
And you're wishing you had listened because then your road would be less rocky.
Yes.
And, it's sometimes I have some people in my life that like to go the rocky path, and watching them do that is painful.
It is. But you gotta let them. Dude,
that's a rocky path over there. You don't see all the rocks. I see. Okay. I see all those rocks. You don't see them. It's like, all right, you're going to go there anyway. But sometimes people need to do that, right? Like they got to walk the rocky road just to know that it's rocky. And to have that experience of that's the rocky road when I don't listen to anything my soul's trying to get me to do. And I just go, nope. And then we have that experience, and hopefully through that experience, grow and learn and decide, oh, I don't want to do that anymore. It's so much easier if I just listen to my soul and do the uncomfortable thing my soul is asking me to do, which is way less uncomfortable than not doing it and having everything explode in my face.
Yeah.
Because you can't hold on to stuff that's not meant for you, you try, but.
I would be happy to share a story of when I got intuitively punched in the face. There's been many of them, but I'll share this one in particular because it's coming to the forefront for me. So with my first business, I had employees, quite a few employees on my team. And towards the leading up to 2020, there were just some signs that I really needed to make a change. Okay. I also want to premise this by saying I built my first business unintentionally off of all of my insecurities. Okay. So they were.
That happens. Yeah.
It sure does. They came up loud, proud, and clear. I just didn't know it. So I'm building this business. I have this full team and I'm sensing, right? I'm getting those nudges. that maybe we need to downsize. Maybe we need to restructure things. Maybe we don't need all this extra stuff. Maybe we need to restructure some of these subscriptions. Like, I'm just feeling like we need to like pull it back some. But I was so rooted in making sure that everybody had everything that they needed that I was willing to put myself on the back burner. I was like, I passed it off. It'll be fine. We'll get through this. This is just a rough time. Except the rough time was like a couple of years, by the way. It wasn't just a little, a little
tiny bump. It wasn't a speed bump. It was like a mile bump.
It was a mile bump. Yeah. We'll call it that from now on. And I had all these senses and they got stronger and clients started to shift away because we were finished with their stuff and like the finances were getting thin and I could just see it. And I chose not to trust it. I chose to continue people pleasing and quote unquote, not letting anybody down. And what ended up happening, but a global pandemic. And what happened was in one afternoon, I had to call everybody in the room. I had to lay everybody off. I had to cancel half of our stuff. And I packed up all my stuff and I moved out of our office back into my basement. And I can remember that drive home and I'm like, I freaking saw it. I knew what was coming. I felt it, but it felt more uncomfortable to do it outside of a situation where it didn't feel like it had a bigger context.
Yeah, like you could feel the energy of the pandemic coming. You knew something was coming that would require massive cutbacks in order to sustain through it.
Yep.
And you just went, no, that doesn't match my current reality. I'm not listening to that.
I turned my head and I was like, nope, I will fix this. I will figure this out. Right. Like my ego was like, Laura's strong and independent. And she'll be able to fix this. Yeah, I fixed it all right.
She can work myself. 80 hours a week.
Yeah, I fixed it for sure, but all by myself and by backpedaling through torrential puddles of mud. And it's one of these situations where I don't regret it because obviously it happened that way for a reason. It reminded me how intuitive I am. It reminded me that this is not a Laura ability and then the business is a separate thing. This is me and me is my business. And this is part of how I make decisions and how I navigate, leading a team and working with clients and showing up in the world. I can no longer separate these things because it's going to continue to punch me in the face and that hurts.
Yeah, it really does. And it hurts because you also care. So you cared about all the people on your team. That was
absolutely
then a sense of responsibility for that.
The shame that came after that then, right?
Oh, yeah.
Unpacking that and feeling through that and healing through that. Like it definitely spearheaded a whole new journey that I had to go through. But again, I think everything happens the way that it's supposed to because I learned lessons. I figured out who I was. I refigured out what I actually wanted to do. It's what led me to the work that I'm doing now, So can I be mad at it the way that it happened? No. Would I have preferred it went differently? Absolutely. But it is what was meant to be.
Yeah. And what you're saying now raises up to my awareness the importance of intuition, not only for predicting future outcomes, right? Like feeling things coming and tuning into that and like paying attention to it and making the necessary changes. It also is about being the kind of person that tunes into that intuition and in full transparency and self-honesty, no matter what the impact is to you and your private stash of money, to make the right choice, right? To say the thing in the meeting that needs to be said. And I think if we had more people like that on the planet up until now, we wouldn't have some of these disasters we're having around the planet because we would have had people tuning into that heart-centered space, tuning into their bodies, tuning into the planet and saying, that doesn't sound sustainable to me. That doesn't sound like that's going to work out very well for future generations. What about future generations? So we're in that moment, right? Like when we talk about bringing the woo to work, we're not just talking about your Oracle card deck. We're talking about bringing your spirit essence, your heart knowing into the workplace to inform the choices that are being made.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the greatest ways that we can make an impact in this world because it opens doors, it clarifies, it redirects, it supports. You got to really look at this from the lens of like, this is really truly a gift and a superpower. And why hide that? We want to hide it and because we don't want people to know that we're different or unique or we've got some weird thing that we do. It's not weird. Why is it weird? When it's part of who you are, it just innately is you. And when you utilize it, all you're doing is pouring greatness out. I mean, it's one of the most miraculous things. The more that I allow myself to be myself, the easier and more beautiful and more abundant and fulfilling everything gets in my world. And when you stop resisting this really powerful part of you, you'll realize that like a lot of the pain, the hesitation, the anxiety, dare I even say depression that comes along with holding this stuff in, it starts to dissipate because you're not holding all that energy in your body anymore. You're allowing it to flow through you.
Yeah. And you're leading your life from the one within that actually knows what's up, the bigger part of you that knows how to live a life well.
Absolutely.
Instead of the personality, which is, the personality is not a mistake. The personality is here to experience life through and as. It's just more like if I was dressed up for Halloween and I was wearing a witch costume and I showed up as witch, that's like a shallow facade, right? It's just a costume. It's a mask. It's a hat. It's a costume. But if I showed up fully expressed as me as witch, well, then that would be a whole different situation, right? It'd be like full of power and stuff going on. And it's kind of like that. I mean, these faces we wear are masks. These personalities we have are masks. They're just, they're masks for the essence that's underneath, that's infusing it with life. And so when we let the eternal wise essence lead the conversation, we come into a whole different experience than when it's just the mask leading the conversation. And it's not, I don't want to shame the mask because, the mask is fun, but it just doesn't have the same power or potency or vision or understanding as the essence that's created that mask, so it really is switching into that deeper level of life navigation from that source within.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really cool journey. The more you tap into it, the more that you take off the mask, the more that you allow yourself to be. I'm not pretending. I'm not hiding. I'm not filtering. I'm not putting on a facade. I'm not adding on a filter, physically, mentally, spiritually. I just am. It's way easier to be yourself than it is to try to be all the things that you're not.
Yeah. And then it's natural too. And it feels good, because people get in that conversation that helps them to just be themselves too. And there's a whole lot less awkward going on in the conversation, like that weird awkward energy, like that.
Oh, yeah.
Like periodically my ego will rise up, like I'll see another glimpse of it and it'll be like super awkward. I'll go, oh, hi, ego. Hi, sweetie. There you are. You're still here. Richard Rudd says that, who's the founder of the Gene Keys medicine. I think you know about the Gene Keys, but the audience knows. Yeah. And he says that, the personality is like the lichen on the rocks on the top of the mountain, like it's still there, because we created it. We created it to experience life through, it's a certain lens. It's a certain like experience to have, you want to have the experience of it. Like, in this Halloween, I want to be a witch. Next Halloween, I want to be the princess, so you're choosing your mask. But in this lifetime, we get the opportunity to be like all of who we are too at the same time, which I think is really a cool opportunity. And it can heal everything. I remember like back in 2019, right before the whole shutdown happened, I spoke at the Evolutionary Business Council. They had a meeting and they had me lead a ceremony in prayer for the planet, which was kind of cool because it's a global organization and they were inviting me to lead a shamanic ceremony to close it out. I thought that was amazing.
That's huge.
Like huge. And as I opened, I had a whole speech written out, and like an hour before I was supposed to give it, my soul, like white ego, said, we're not saying that speech, so don't even bring the cards. And I was like, oh, like, what are you going to say? Like, oh my God, okay, I don't even know what I'm going to say then. Like, this isn't fair. And I remember as I was like moving through, allowing this energy to move through and speak, the message that came through is like, the thing that's going to, if you want to say save the planet, the thing that's going to like save humanity, let's just say that, is going to be the souls. So like soul embodiment is the absolute number one priority. And so when we think about it in that context, of course, we're bringing woo to work. We're bringing woo like everywhere, because that is what's going to have the wisdom to change things up to the place where life is sustainable on the planet.
I always think about, imagine if everybody was just even 10% more of who they really are. The vibration of the planet, something's going to crack, you're literally going to feel a ripple. If everybody were just 10% more of who they really are or who they're aspiring to be, like the vibration you would have to be able to feel it. And I think that how powerful we are as human beings, that when we allow ourselves to be ourselves, that we vibrate at a higher frequency, and then other people get to experience that, which invites them to do the same if they're aware of it or not. Gosh, we are so incredibly powerful as individuals, but collectively completely unstoppable. I think what ends up happening though is we hide those things, we lower the vibration, the negatives get in the way and throw off the tracks, and it just gets really muddy out there. And I think that sometimes it can feel discouraging when you're trying to do good and there's all this crap happening in the world. But what's the alternative, right? I think the world needs us now more than ever. And if we can increase our vibration by 10%, whatever that looks and feels like to you, then that has to do good. That's it. There's no other story to it. Good going out continues the good ripple effect. So keep showing up, my friends. The world really needs us now more than ever.
What's one simple practice that people can do to do that, to bring 10% more of themselves out at work? What's one thing that most people would feel safe with, in that corporate environment, whatever they're experiencing at work? What's one thing that they could do to silently, quietly be the storm of change?
So the thing that's coming running to the front that's like, please say me, is I would invite you to start grounding every day. Grounding at your workplace, outside before you go in the building, sitting at your desk. Pick what feels right for you, okay? It's choose your own adventure, no right or wrong here. But what I mean by this is I want you to start getting grounded in your energy, grounded and connected in for you. And that can look like a 30-second just stillness and tapping into how am I feeling right now? What's coming in? What do I need to know right now? Hold this space sacred for me. Open up the right opportunities. Allow the right information to come in, through, and out of me today in this workplace, right? You're just getting into your body, because what ends up happening in the workplace, whether you're an entrepreneur, you work for somebody else, you're in a job, you're virtual, it doesn't matter. You're still going to work. There's so many influences that happen. Other people's energies, emergency this, last minute that, people storming in your office, unannounced. This paper is due now by the end of the day, right? Something went haywire on social media and needs fixed. I mean, there's 18 billion things that could go haywire every single day, right? But if you're grounded in yourself, those things will not affect you as much. You become less shakeable within your own energy, and it allows you to hear what you need to hear and to move in a more solid way versus this scattered kind of throwing spaghetti on the wall kind of situation. It's like, okay, when this other energy presents itself to me, I am more grounded and solid within myself. And now I can consciously respond instead of subconsciously react. And that alone, I promise you, will make a huge difference. And you just make this a quiet, simple practice. Again, you can do it for a minute. You can do it for 5 minutes. Choose your own adventure. But if you do it, you will absolutely start to notice a difference.
Yeah, 100%. I love that. And being in presence, I love how you were saying about don't let things throw you off. Don't let things scatter your energy. I often talk about don't let things hook your attention. There's people running patterns and those patterns want to eat and they want to eat your anger and frustration. So don't give it up. It's like drop into your inner peace and just know that everything is okay. It's all going to work out just fine. And even better if you stay grounded, right? I love that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, powerful. You're like saying no to the stress. You're looking stress in the face and saying, not today, not here.
Nope. No, thank you.
No, thanks.
You can go down,
move along,
down the hall to the left, but not in my door.
Not here, please. Yeah, that's awesome. Beautiful. I love that guidance. So that's easy to institute, everybody. Just like remember, like when you start getting like fidgety, I get fidgety a lot because I have a lot of energy running through my body at all the times. And so like when I start getting fidgety, I go, okay, ground again. And I'll just do it in the moment. Like I did it a few minutes ago. I just went, oh yeah, ground. Because you have to ground the energy. And I also this is what's coming up now for this. We are like a house, right? And a house has an electrical system and the electrical system has a grounding wire. And if the house didn't have a grounding wire and the electricity went on, the whole house would explode. And this is what happens to humans when they don't ground, is that they've got an emotional experience and the whole house explodes. Yeah. So like if we're not grounded, we can't manage the flow and the volume of energy that wants to pass through us on a daily basis, especially as empaths.
Oh, absolutely. Grounding is a great way, not just to get into yourself, but also to release the crap that you've unintentionally picked up throughout the day too. So I love a good analogy.
That's fantastic. Well, so, I know that you have your beautiful Gutsy podcast, and I'll put a link in the show notes below to my appearance on the podcast, if available. Yes. If not, then the homepage. So what else do you want to offer people? Like how do people get started with you if they're curious about working with you? Do you have any like free gifts or offers or some way of them to get to know you?
Yeah. So I think the best place to start, if today's conversation has piqued your interest, if you go to LauraAura.com/foundations, you will get access to a free 5-day private podcast. So it's not on live on the Gutsy Podcast. It's a private audio that I'll send you. And it will teach you the foundational method to being able to shift your thoughts in the moment. So our mind gets involved and talks us out of things before we even get started and wants to play all these things on repeat. And I've created a method that I used myself, didn't know I was creating until I was using it. And I was like, this is so incredibly powerful. This has changed my life. I have to teach other people how to do this. And so that's what I'll do. I'll teach you some audios, send you some audios free for 5 days, and it'll teach you the method to get out of your own way.
I love that. Thank you so much for that. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I'll put the link in the show notes below, everybody, so you can go check that out. I recommend that you do that. And yes, thank you for being on the show today. I really appreciated it. Is there any last thing any bit of wisdom or anything else coming through that you want to share with everyone before we wrap?
Yeah. Let me feel into that for a second. I feel really called to let the listener know, I'm looking at you right now, my friend, to let you know that your gifts and abilities are needed. They are needed in whatever workplace that you're in and whatever community that you're in, your family environment. There's so much pulsating through you right now. And the relief that you're looking for will come when you express it. And whatever's coming up for you right now, trust that that's exactly what it is. But I'm telling you that it's needed. It's needed to help guide people. It's needed to help people with answers. It's needed for your soul to release. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. So allow yourself to feel it, to express it, to let it be what it is, and know that you've done everything with the highest good.
Beautiful. I received that. That's a beautiful message. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Awesome, everyone. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please like it, comment, share it out to whoever you think would enjoy this episode. And I always give people kisses at the end. And so if you want to join me, you can. Here come your kisses, everybody. Thanks for staying with us, everybody. Mwah. Love you all and see you next time on Soul Nectar Show. Bye for now. If you found even one gold nugget in this episode of Soul Nectar Show, will you do us a favor? Will you subscribe, like, and share this episode? Maybe even write a comment and let us know what you thought about it. We really, really want to engage with you at a much deeper level. Let's be part of community together. Have a great week, everyone. Bye for now. To dive in deeper to nourishing conversation, visit soulnectar.show.
Soul Nectar Show. Awaken the Soul Nectar Show. Take a sip from the drip of nectar, from the source of who you are.